As a preliminary matter, this is Woody Knight, Chair of the Newbury Planning Board. Please permit me to confirm that all members in person anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Peter Pecos.
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy.
Yes.
Scott Kenter.
Yes.
And Steve Mangian.
Yes.
Town staff, Kristen Gross, Planning Director.
Yes.
And Sadie Woodward, Assistant Planner.
Yes.
Good evening. The July 29th, 2026 open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, which extends the Governor's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 3820, until June 30th, 2027. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom, as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the town's website. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID number 832-7141-3056. And the passcode is 108790, or by calling in 1-929-205-6099 US and entering the meeting ID number and passcode when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and on telephone conference. The meeting is also being broadcast live through local access cable channel 9 and on Zoom and at newburytv.wixsite.com/TNCTV. And the recording will be available on the Newbury Access YouTube channel. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As chair, I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I'll go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. For all attendees, please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. On Zoom, use the mute button. On your telephone, use *6 to toggle mute and unmute. Also, to raise your hand, it's *9 on your telephone. And if you are raising your hand on the Zoom forum, you hover over the bottom of your screen and the raised hand function will appear. There are no public hearings this evening. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right. The first item on the agenda this evening is meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes for July 15th, 2026?
I have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the July 15th, 2026 meeting minutes as drafted or amended.
I'll make that motion.
And I will
Thank you,
second
Larry.
that motion.
Thank you, Peter. Roll call vote. Peter Pecos?
Yes, sir.
Larry Murphy?
Yes.
Scott Kenter?
Yes.
Thank you, Scott. And Steve Mangian?
Yes.
Thank you, Steve. And I vote yes as well. So those are meeting minutes. Liaison and meeting reports. We have CBA Larry.
Actually, Woody, I don't have anything to report tonight. If we could just pass this over.
Okay, great. And I don't have anything to report either for Conservation Commission. We're on summer schedule. We meet once a month. We haven't met since our last meeting. All right, and now we'll turn to old business. Request modification of 34 Central Street, Level 2 site plan review for Byfield Heights, a 44-unit multifamily development in the Newbury zoning bylaw section 97-4 MBTA communities multifamily overlay district at 34 Central Street, assesses map R19-0-19. Owner applicant Massachusetts Housing Opportunities Corporation LLC. I'd like to welcome our attorney Jay Tellerman. Hello, Jay, can you hear us?
Can.
Thank you, Jay. Now I'd like to welcome Gerald Welch and Mike Ivers, and engineer Christian Smith, and attorney Mark Dabrowski. Hello, everyone. I don't know who's going to present tonight for your team, but whoever's going to present, could you please present your request for modification?
You're muted, Mark.
Yeah, Mark is muted.
Is that not working?
No,
I can hear you now, Mark. Yep.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of what's happened since the last meeting. And, I think it's all positive news. We watched with interest as the Conservation Commission chairman weighed in and essentially said that he didn't think it was possible to tweak the wetlands crossing in a way that would get enough votes on the Conservation Commission to have that adopted as their position. And I think right after that, planning director sent an email around to everybody saying, well, we're on to phase 2, which is if we can't tweak the wetlands crossing, let's look at tweaking the single access roadway and see if we can't make it better. So I reached out to Attorney Tallerman a few weeks ago. We exchanged a couple of emails. I know I had mentioned a boulevard entrance in one of the previous meetings, and Jay reminded me of that. I reached out to Christian, and Christian put in a proposal for a 30-foot boulevard, long, 30 feet in length. And then I think he's made an amendment to that, and now we've managed to squeeze 40 feet out. So I'm going to turn it over to Christian and let him talk about the thinking that went into that. And I know Mr. Sawatka sent in a memo today, and if Christian has any thoughts on that, I'd ask him to respond to that as well.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and the floor is yours, Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board. Again, Christian Smith, engineer with Beals Associates, representing the applicants on this project. So just to expound on Mark's introduction, so we did indeed what is proposed. And Sadie, would you think it makes sense at this point to share the boulevard plan, the boulevard entrance plan? I can certainly do that if you prefer.
Yeah, if you have it, I can make you
All
go.
right, yeah, I think that yeah, it says the sharing is disabled.
Okay. Or actually, I think maybe Kristen, I think as host, you have power to do that.
There
You
we
should
go.
be able to now, Christian.
Yes, indeed. Okay. All right, let me try that again. Let's go here. And that's not the right plan. There we go. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So what what we ended up proposing is we widened out the road, obviously, to make a 2-foot wide. It will be curbed. I guess the question I would have for the board, or more pointedly to DPW, is whether they prefer that to be vertical granite or slope granite, and that is just to ease their ability to plow without digging up those slabs of granite every winter. But 2 feet wide, the interior would be proposed to be planted with some very low growing shrubs, obviously salt tolerant, and then likely finished just below the top of the granite curbing so that it wouldn't be spilling onto the road. some washed decorative stone, like a washed white river stone or something like that, just for aesthetic purposes. As Mark mentioned, we were able to extend the entire length of that boulevard separation into a 40-foot long proposal. The reason I am uncomfortable going further towards Central Street with that is that if you look at the fire truck, the ladder truck in particular, turning radius into the property, they are probably going to need all of that space so that they're not running their tires over the curve at this location on their way in. But that is likely or largely the proposal as far as that's concerned. Let me see. We also, in accordance with suggestion, and it's hard to do because the top of the Zoom meeting is blocking my ability to enlarge this thing. Let me see here if I can load this up. Well, there we go. All right, and I want to get this all in screen so you can see the terminus. This line right here is the property line, and the fire department building is on this property right here. So what the proposal was is to extend the
Kristen?
sidewalk.
Kristen,
Yeah.
I don't think we have that image in front of us.
Yeah, we have the
Oh,
old.
you're not seeing this one? Okay. So I think I've got to stop. I apologize. I've got to stop sharing and now reshare. All right. I thought I could just switch plans, but evidently that's not working out. Let's try that. Let me know if that comes up for you.
Yep.
Okay, so my apologies. I'll go through that again very quickly for the board. This line is the property line that begins the fire department. So the fire department is on this property. And what our proposal was after working through comments with staff would be to extend the sidewalk all the way down. Obviously, these areas, and we don't have detail at the street for exactly how these two driveways connect out to Central Street, but those would be, if necessary, have ADA compliant ramps, tip downs, etc., and run all the way out to the fire station property. We did receive the memo this morning on this from Joe Serwatka, and a couple of things I will note. Just looking at this section of the road and my recollection of it, I don't really think curbing is going to be a great idea for this. So alternately, we could kick this off 3 feet and just have a grass strip between the sidewalk. Because I think that better lays with these driveways when we get there. And there's basically 3 connections or 3 penetrations into Central Street that are going to have to be crossed by this driveway. And again, I think if we go with just an at grade, it basically addresses the concern for stormwater that Joe had brought up, because it just allows everything to continue to sheet flow in the same direction that it had before. He did make a comment about the nearest catch basin, I believe, being somewhere down in this location. But the high point of the road is roughly right here of Central Street itself. Then it runs this way, then it runs that way, and essentially we would have this small section. But as the entrance drive into the proposed project actually continues a negative slope away from the road, this stormwater, which would be coming from here, will simply continue to run in and get collected by this first catch basin, as would be the case if the sidewalk was not extended to that length. That said, those are by and large the issues that we had seen from Joe. We're happy to go do a site walk if he feels that's necessary. But I think that by and large, there's nothing, in his memo. If the board prefers something like this and likes the look of a sidewalk that goes out to the fire department property, that would preclude us from being able to do this fairly easily. I did notice that some of these homes have some, I'm not sure if it's actually landscaping or hardscaping, but that seems to project into the municipal right of way. Again, I don't think that's a big problem. I think it can be avoided. But they may not be completely pleased with what the proposal is until it's done. That said, I did also at the planner's request go through and take that same drawing and basically provide a location of where the existing streetlights are. And the more pertinent one, well, there's one on this pole right here, which is going to be relocated, so that light will be relocated. But there is additionally an overhead, I'm assuming the old-fashioned high-pressure sodium, attached to this light pole here. Then it skips two, and then there's another one down closer to the property before the fire station. So there are quite a few existing streetlights there, and that, along with the light that we have proposed for the project, is in my opinion and our lighting engineer's opinion, going to provide a really good entrance illumination during the dark hours. And I think that is largely it for me, Mr. Chairman. I am happy to stop sharing, and unless you'd like me to keep this up for questions.
You could keep it up for a moment.
Sure.
All right. Jay Tellerman, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
I don't. I think that I'm anxious to hear some dialogue and discussion amongst the board members. I think that there's been some reporting from Joe and some consideration of some of these issues at a staff level. My interest is more in making sure that you get where you want to be on these provisions. Certainly in my experience, boulevards add some measure of protection with respect to single access projects. Obviously, more clear sight lines and sidewalks are always a benefit too. But I'd really defer to the board's discussion on this, and I'm just trying to implement final decisions here.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Kristen, do you want to speak to Joe Schwalker's comments before I turn it over to the board?
Yeah, I would echo what Christian's saying, and the board has read the comments that, there are some details related to stormwater, drainage, and, the exact type of a sidewalk, if a sidewalk is deemed appropriate here. Sadie and I did speak both with the police chief and the DPW director this morning. DPW director is happy to go out on the site. He and with the engineer, with peer review, if Christian, that makes sense, related to the drainage in particular. We looked at the plan, and there is quite an extensive right of way that the town has that currently is not in the paved existing condition of the road. So it does appear that there's room for the sidewalk, but I think, it would merit the closer look just to make sure how that is engineered is appropriate. But the DPW director was supportive of a sidewalk. I think both from the perspective of obviously safety for pedestrians, but also adding that sidewalk would be a permanent way to keep those sight lines that we've talked about open, rather than having an area where the vegetation regularly grows up and has to get maintained regularly. The sidewalk extends the width of impervious area that will not have vegetation growing up to impede on sightlines. So there are kind of multiple strategies that I think the sidewalk is potentially helping with a solution for. The police chief was also supportive. She loves sidewalks. She has a list of sidewalks she'd love to see in town. And this is certainly an area where, you know, there are amenities that we've already addressed in terms of pedestrian traffic. The crosswalk on the other side of Central Court, you know, students or kids, whoever, walking on the sidewalks that already exist over 95, heading to town hall, to the library, etc. So she was supportive. She also really likes the boulevard. In particular, her comment about that was that it really slows traffic, because the traffic turning in, it really is a structure that means you can't take the corner on your two wheels and careen around. So she was very enthusiastic about seeing the boulevard. We did talk about lighting with both DPW and police, which is why I reached out to Christian and said, can you just identify in the plan where the existing streetlights are, so the board can know those existing conditions, and then consider, with this now being an in and out road, you know, are there any other questions related to lighting? So Christian, thank you for providing that.
Absolutely. And I can put that other plan up that actually shows those highlighted in red if you think that's going to be useful for the board.
Hold off on that for a minute. We'll leave this up.
Yes,
for the
by all
board-
means.
board's
Yep.
question. We'll start with Pete Pecos. Do you have any questions or comments for Christian or anyone else?
I do, Woody, and thanks very much. First, Jay and Mark, thanks for working together to try to get us to a good point here. And Christian, take out your pencil and your pad of paper. So one of the biggest concerns I think that I've expressed over this was traffic concerns and traffic safety. And the biggest of those concerns was people leaving the site as it relates to people traveling on Central Street, east to west. That's the greatest area of concern, because we do have that minimal standard being met. And so I'm curious, and we had a brief conversation yesterday with staff about some of these concerns, and we were leaning into the staff to maybe investigate things that might help in any manner, in addition to the boulevard, which I appreciate that it's now 40 feet, for traffic calming measures that could be done to Central Street. Now, I remember when we had the Prime gas station proposal before this board, we had leaned into that's twice I've used that. We leaned into now 3 times, into the concept of a turning lane to help slow traffic and allow for better access in and out of the site. And that, of course, was across the street, basically right across from where this project is now. And so I'm curious if we should be investigating that concept, and if that is something that would help also calm traffic, where that would begin. So where would a turning lane begin prior to Central Court or to help with this? Again, the biggest concern is the traffic going from west to east as people are leaving this. And if somebody is leaving this site and they're turning to go west, so east to west, so they're traveling down Central Street, heading towards 95, should we consider, or should we have a discussion as to any traffic notification signals that could indicate when someone is leaving this site? Whether it's how we have the crosswalks that are going to be there. Should it be a pressure sensor that would be activated to let people know that someone is leaving this site? We've seen some of those put into the area recently. So I'm wondering if something like that should be also discussed. With regards to the boulevard itself, just for point of clarification, DPW won't be plowing this. This is a private drive, so the private contractors will have to deal with the granite on the boulevard. The sidewalk, I don't know what the sidewalk regulation is, and Kristen, I don't know if you know the answer to that, if new sidewalks require granite as part of the design, and how will that, and if that is the case, how would that affect the stormwater management as it directs it towards the entrance? Because we would be increasing the flow of water and potentially ice water, and then in cold conditions, would that create a potential, concern for ice or black ice at that entrance? We had to give this consideration when we did the golf center conversation. And if we do go with the sidewalk provision as discussed, the implications to the neighbors that currently have a buffer, and a very beautiful buffer, that would be affected with the sight line being changed now, and what provisions are being discussed with the two adjacent properties to see how we could ensure that they will continue to have some privacy. So I'm going to go down my list, Christian, and if I numbered it correctly, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things that I had for questions in that little dialogue that I just gave you. So I don't know if you want to hold on that and just put that in the thinking pile as other members have other questions, and I might have more questions. So that's what I have at the top right now, Woody. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Peter. Larry Murphy, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't think I have any questions. Just for comments, Woody. First of all, let me say I'm satisfied that the applicant made a good faith effort to have that central court egress approved, and unfortunately, it didn't happen. I think the suggestions of the boulevard and entrance and the sidewalk intuitively to me seem like good suggestions, a good way to go. I would just, and Pete raises some interesting questions, some of which I have not thought about, honestly. I do anticipate that the offsite traffic safety signage, as previously discussed, would also be part of this project. The final approval. And I just urge the applicant to work with staff and our peer review engineer and try to work through some of these technical issues.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Scott Kinter, questions or comments?
Yeah, similar to Larry, I don't really have any questions. Again, I think we all appreciate the effort on the secondary access for egress that we originally had, I think, loved. I think that would have been, a great outcome. Appreciate the boulevard. Makes a lot of sense. I've seen them. Don't quite know. I think that curve, whatever is going to be used, whether it's a private contractor or a town plow, I think that will be a really perennial maintenance issue on this deal. Lastly, I did on my way home, took a ride by it again. It is as soft as that corner is. It just feels a little dangerous, and I think we could have gotten egress over the wetlands. Again, that would have been ideal, but I would love to see just maybe a last stab at something that may protect the pedestrians, motorists that are going to pass by there, every single day. And there's a lot of them. That's really all I have. But do appreciate the effort by the applicant, his team, as well as Kristen, Sadie, and all of the department heads. It's been an effort, and it's been long, but I do think we are getting close, and very much appreciate just taking really a last look. That would be helpful.
Thank you, Scott. Steve Mangian, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I look forward
Christian
to,
or anyone else?
yeah, I look forward to Peter's comments being addressed. It seems to me the sidewalk might well improve the sight lines and what is regarded as a standard. Well, we're meeting the minimal standards for sight lines and the like. And I do try and remind myself that, we do have a standard out there, which apparently they're meeting. It may be met minimally, but that is the standard. Someday down the road, some group may want to revisit how minimal a standard must be to have proper sight lines. But I think we need to keep in mind that the applicant has met the requirements as they exist. And that's it.
Thank you, Steve. For comments I just have, I appreciate the boulevard that I think that would be helpful. In the sidewalk, in theory of on a DPW level and sightline level, makes sense to me. I don't appreciate though, and don't know if it affects or not the neighbors buffer. Their neighbors have a beautiful buffer that they've well established and been there for a long time. So if something happens to their buffer, I would appreciate a solution to that to recreate what they had before. Whether it be fencing or a new vegetation buffer that currently exists now. And Pete also brought up another concern I'll reiterate was we had it with golf on Scotland Road. The water, stormwater traveling down that curb, whatever that curb may be on the sidewalk, puddling up in front of the exit side of the exit, and becoming ice. That could be a big concern and a big problem in the future for people exiting the development. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Christian. Unless any other board members have any other quick questions, I'll turn it over to Christian to answer what's been brought up.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Woody. Firstly, I'll address the abutting properties tree buffer. So you can see this is the proposed tree line, and recall when we proposed the clearing to open up the sight distance triangle here, that's the hatched area. That is cut directly to the right of way, and then obviously on anybody else's property, it's not touched whatsoever. So this entire area is going to remain treed. There's no proposal to cut trees here. I think to Kristen's point, adding the sidewalk, whether it be here or offset with a grass strip between it and the road, will certainly prevent future vegetation, native shrubs, weeds, things like that from growing in that sight line. But again, this is already proposed to be cleared and maintained to be maintained as cleared, such that the sight line is opened up out to the point that we depicted on the plan here. Secondly, I'll touch on the stormwater. So again, this is the high point in the road. It is a very, very small area of additional impervious. Whether it's curbed or not, my suspicion would be we would want to have that sidewalk sloped away from the road, not draining into it, which would mean the water will run down. You can almost see in these contours, it's not, I'm not going to call it a channel, but there is a diversion where the water currently runs. It is either going to follow down and get inside where the curbing stops at our tip down for the crosswalk and run to this catch basin, or it is simply going to overland through the woods and ultimately do the same thing. So I think the propensity for water ponding in this area is extremely low because we've got a 2-foot slope on the paved drive aisle or passing aisle for the road, and then we continue down at -1% to the low point at where this pair of catch basins is left. So really, any of that additional square footage of potential impervious for the sidewalk, should the board determine, oh, I'm sorry about that, I hit a button. Should the board determine that they are interested in that, will continue to run into the project and get collected in that initial catch basin. I did not have opportunity to look to see if there is a local requirement specific to curbing on the sidewalk itself, but again, if it is, that's not going to be of any major concern. And Peter, I'm going to try and recall the rest of your points. The first one with regard to a bypass lane or a turning lane, I simply don't think that we can widen this road out because number one of the utility poles on this side of the property, and then if we are going to have a sidewalk, if we extend in this direction, we are going to start getting very close to the property lines, and obviously we can't propose to not only create pervious area on private property, but even grade into that. So I don't think that's really a workable solution for this. I will remind the board members that the chief of police did already have us installing signage. I think that's one at this location that is on a different plan, but they do have the warning signs of traffic turning and entering both directions, and I forget the distance that the fire chief had. I mean, excuse me, the police chief had us put those in, but we do have those as well as the warning signs for the pedestrian crossing and the crosswalk across Central Street here as well. So some of those features are already in place. Let's see, I've covered the stormwater, I've covered the clearing within the sight line. I've covered the bypass lane. Peter, I apologize, I'm running out of numbers here. At least in my own head.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And actually, the bypass lane that I was thinking, Christian, would be towards 95. So it would be, and so it'd be people turning into the development, right?
Traveling east?
Yes, traveling east. And what that does, from my perspective, is and that increases the slowing down process of someone turning in. It also allows for the individuals to see traffic that's coming in both directions in a clearer manner. What I mean by that is if you're sitting wanting to leave, the biggest concern is not people entering into this process, it's people leaving. And so whatever can be done, and I'm not a traffic consultant, this is just kind of, Pete's common sense sort of stuff. Anything that could be done to make it easier for somebody to leave that site. So as people are coming in, they get into a turning lane. You see that they're coming in. They're in a turning lane. There's no question of a blinker. That removes that whole obstacle as to whether somebody turns on a blinker or doesn't turn on a blinker. They'll be in a turning lane, so you know that they're coming into the site. That eliminates that question, which means they have to focus mostly of their attention to the right, which is the area of concern, which has the minimal sight line. So you're eliminating the decision-making process on the left as you're trying to leave this site, and you're concentrating on the people that are flying down the road. They've picked up good speed. The road is now repaved. So when roads get repaved, people don't go slower, they go faster. Okay, that's what's happening throughout town. It makes it nice and smooth. So attention can be then directed more towards the east to westbound traffic on Central Street, because that's where I think you're the biggest, from my humble opinion, the biggest safety concern would be with the design of this project as it is.
Yep, and I mean we can certainly take a look at that with our traffic consultants, Peter. I mean, if you now once this bumps out here over before you get to the plaza, there's probably adequate room. But again, unfortunately, we've got the overhead wires on that side, and then they cross in a couple of locations here. It's going to be very tight to keep that within the confines of just existing features out there, but certainly something that can be looked at.
Right. This was proposed on a previous project that was going to happen across the street. So the concept was already kind of endorsed by previous engineers. So that's all I'll say about that. Thanks so much, Christian.
Yep, pleasure. Did I miss any of your points, Peter?
I think you got them.
Well, good enough.
Um,
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart.
Christian, I just want to address the vegetation. I wasn't talking about the vegetation on your property. It's the adjacent property towards the fire station. And it's right on the corner of their property, right in front of the dwelling where they're living, right at the high spot in the road. And
So right
my
here?
yep, it goes right along the front of that house.
Oh, along in this area.
Yeah, the width of that house, and it's a beautiful buffer for them right now. If you could see it right now, it's all green leafed and 6 feet tall. And I just would hate to see the sidewalk affect that buffer for the neighbors. That would be a drastic change for them for this development to go in and have that happen to them. So
Understood. Yep.
I would like to see you pay attention to that, and yeah, if you could address that in the future with whether or not that sidewalk would affect their buffer, because right now, from past images of line of sight back months and months ago, it just cut into their buffer as it was. So if you could figure out a way to show that it can remain or address it if it has to go, so that they can replace the buffer with something else, because right now it really helps them with traffic noise and lights and everything.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I apologize, Woody. I misunderstood. I didn't realize you were
Yep.
talking about the buffer to Central Street per se.
Yep, for the neighbor.
I
Yep.
understand now.
Yep, and it's been a concern of mine all along, and I just don't want to see that buffer interrupted with the sidewalk. So if that's the case, if that could be addressed, that would be great. And that, with that said, does anyone on the planning board members have any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in at that point if we're hearing none?
Go right ahead, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes.
It seems to me we have two issues on the table. One is, and we dearly love it, if we could have the boulevard that we've proposed approved. That would put that to bed. This new issue tonight, sidewalk, grass strip, buffer, I'm going to propose, because this is just really slowing Mike and Jerry down in terms of their plans for the project. I'm going to propose that we handle that as some sort of a condition in which you'll be made happy at the board level prior to the issuance of any building permit, so that they can, avoid meetings that are continued now into what looks like it'll be Labor Day.
Jake, would you like to speak to that?
Oh, so I'm assuming that Mark is suggesting that we structure a number of conditions which might allow for, the boulevard is one thing. I think that's set. There's a couple of what ifs still that Christian is going to look at. And if we were going to trying to capture those just in kind of conditions of approval, there's going to be some what if language that we're going to have to work through and discuss with the board. If Mark has an idea as to what that would look like, I'm all ears. I see the two issues there in particular that Peter mentioned and that Christian spoke about still being willing to look into. One was, I think, with that turn lane, and the other one was with the issue you referenced, Woody, on the corner of the neighbor's property. I mean, we can work with that. Either they can do it or they can't do it, but I'm not sure if that's where everyone is at with this, or we want to see what the results of further review by Christian, and I see his hand is up, so I'm not exactly sure, if we're at that point. I mean, I think creative conditioning is always possible.
Thank you for your advice, Jay. Christian, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just dawns on me specific to the vegetated buffer in front of 36, excuse me, Central Street. There are certainly a couple of options there, Mr. Chairman. One of which being is if we do find that sidewalk is going to encroach into what the neighbors have planted now, albeit in the town's right of way. Two solutions to that are possible. My clients would, without question, agree to replanting to the abutters' satisfaction that area once the work is done on the sidewalk, because that, as you see, is out of our, or as you saw, is out of our cleared sight line to maintain the safe sight distance per AASHTO. And another one, which might even be simpler, and they might be happier with their existing vegetation, would be that driveway, which is very close to their westerly property line, could be the terminus of the sidewalk extension. I mean, it's going to have to meet that driveway either way, whether it extends beyond that or not. But that I don't think is going to be a difficult solution one way or the other. I will leave that for the board to make the determination, which they think is preferable. But I think either one of those would be a reasonable solution to that.
Okay, thank you, Christian. Pete?
Yep. Jay, I'm always now having sat through a couple different things. I get more concerned with conditions because conditions sometimes don't take everything into account. So I think the more that is defined in this plan, from my perspective, I think it makes the most sense. Now, Christian, I was just thinking, if the sidewalk does not have a granite curb, then the water potentially from the road would go onto the sidewalk and then into the swale, because right now it just goes from the road into the swale and that's how it's managed. But if we have a requirement that sidewalks have curbing, which I kind of think that's the case because all the sidewalks that I see that are being put around have curbing, then we are going to have water direction flow differently down that 4-foot slope from the top of of Central Street as it comes down to your side entrance and exit. So I think Joe's comment was that this needs to be discussed a little bit more. So if there is going to be granite, I think there's going to have to be consideration that the water is not going to go over the sidewalk into the swale. So it's that, do you need the granite? Don't you need the granite? If you need the granite, then there's a stormwater management issue, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be an issue, Peter, as I mentioned, because that's literally just going to follow the curvature of the curbing into the property and enter that catch basin, which I think is about 50 or 70 feet into the property. So it's right near the entrance. But and that's fine. I'm happy to have that conversation in coordination with Joe and DPW. And I can't remember if Kristen said the emergency response officials wanted to join in on that as well. But yeah, we would welcome all of that.
All right. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Pete. I have a question for Kristen. We haven't had fire look at the boulevard yet, correct? Turn radius.
I have not talked to the fire chief, but my understanding from the applicant, and please chime in, is that you did review the boulevard, and the message from the fire chief was need to meet my turning radius for my ladder trucks, and he gave the specs again. And I believe, Christian, you said you looked at that relative to the starting point for the boulevard. So I believe the fire chief has approved the boulevard.
That is correct. Yeah, it was actually, I can't take his thunder. That was Michael Ivis who had that correspondence with the chief. And I believe he had an email to the affirmative of what you're saying, which I'm not certain, but I think was forwarded to the planning office. But if it has not been, it certainly can be.
It was. I just haven't spoken directly with the fire chief, but I
Understood.
observed that agreement happened. Yep.
Yes. Yep.
All right. And with that, Kristen, what does Christian need to provide you and the staff and the board for confirmation of the curbings, boulevard, sidewalk? That's those aren't complete designs, correct?
Correct. There's some detail that we don't have yet related to the questions we've been talking about. I have one question related to the sidewalk, which is the design, we have sidewalk on the other side. The plan that's already been approved has improved sidewalk to the west of the entrance on either side of Central Court. And Christian, can you remind me, do those sidewalks have granite curbing?
Those are proposed with curbing, yes.
I think that for many reasons, that is what's preferred. But we did have this conversation with DPW director. And I think, again, what he said was it would make sense to walk out there, look at the on the ground location, give some specificity related to where the town's right of way is, and look at the storm drain. So I do think that's, from my perspective, that's a good step for Joe Serwaka, James Surratt, and the applicant to get out there, figure out what's needed from an engineering perspective, and then
Okay.
give us the detail in the plan.
Okay, and the Christian, you think you could have this all figured out by the 18th? I see your hand, Steve.
I would assume so. Yeah, provided we can get the meeting, Woody, it should be a very quick solution after that.
Steve, question or comment?
It's something of a question. I was just curious whether we have determined that the abutters want to have a sidewalk. And what if they don't? But have we asked them? And we're doing a lot of back and forth about, the construction of the sidewalk, the implications for existing vegetation. And I just thought we should be confident that the abutters want to have a sidewalk extending towards the fire station. So I put the question out there if we've asked them. And if we have, I've forgotten that we did.
I don't recall that we've had any contact with either of those abutters where the sidewalk would be in front of their house. Kristen, you can confirm or deny that if you have had contact with either of the abutters.
I know the abutters have both paid attention to this project, and I've had conversations with them, but not recently. It has been under review for a while now. So I'm happy to reach out to them. I do have contact information for both the abutters. I guess I would say what we're talking about is a sidewalk in the town's right of way for public safety improvement purposes. So while I absolutely agree with everything the planning board's saying about the sensitivity of this and the importance of communicating and coming to a solution that works, we have a lot of concerns that we're trying to address. I'm happy to participate in having those conversations. And I know the applicants have also had conversations with abutters on the other sides of the property during this permitting process. So I won't speak for you, but I imagine Christian and team, you'd be happy to join those conversations on site if that was desired.
Yeah, of course. And I'll remind the board, I mentioned earlier, one alternative, if they are adamantly against it and the board agrees that those should not be installed in front of those properties, we can extend it to the driveway to 36 Central and terminate it at that point. And, moving forward, if further or future development warrants sidewalks going in there, that it is the town's right of way. So, I mean, I understand that you want to make the citizens happy, but the town has the right to do whatever they want to do in their own right of way. So either way, we are completely flexible on this issue, Kristen, and yeah, are happy to work with the abutters, the DPW, and Joe to figure out the best and most logical solution that works for everybody.
Thank you. So based on everything that's been presented, spoken about, discussed, and from what I'm hearing, by August 18th, we should give you guys enough time to button up the few things you need to button up, and we'd be in pretty good shape for the August 18th meeting. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to be so persistent, but my sense of the board when they were addressing the Boulevard proposal was that a majority seemed to think it was a good idea, including you. So can we take the 18th, meaning that it will be about buffer, the curbing, the sidewalk, and that we can put the Boulevard entrance in the rearview mirror?
Yep.
Thank you.
I do. Is that something we need to vote on, Kristen, or is that the discussion good enough?
Yeah, I
Well,
think
we
a
just wanna be
sense of the
prepared,
board is fine on that.
Very good. So it's in the rearview mirror, Mark, and basically it's the curb and the sidewalk, the stormwater. Pete, you're on mute if you're trying to speak.
Thank you.
And I was just going to say, if we want to have MVPC weigh in, if their traffic advisor is available, if not, if we need to do a little research on our end, I would just like to see if we could get that done by the 18th so that we can keep everything moving along.
Yep.
So Sadie and I did reach out to the transportation director at Merrimack Valley Planning Commission today, and we got some very preliminary comments back, which I'm happy to share tonight. And they also said they'd be happy to follow up if the conversation continued past tonight. So they did immediately provide some technical assistance, which is fantastic. So just the questions we raised were regarding a flashing yellow light at the intersection, just how traffic lights work on local town roads. And the counsel we were given was generally those are determined through an assessment of traffic volume and traffic count. So I did spend a few minutes reviewing the traffic reports that we initially got from the applicant provided from Vanessa, and also MDM Transportation reviewed. I did not see anything in those documents because at the time that was what was being considered with the initial proposal was the in and out at this location. So from the information I reviewed, I did not see comments from either of those traffic reviewers that a light was warranted. I don't know that we specifically had that conversation, so it's certainly something we can continue to ask to confirm. Let's see. We asked about turning lanes just in a general way that, MVPC hasn't spent time reviewing this particular site, but just how are turning lanes determined. And I think this was the answer we got today, was a left turn lane would improve throughput, but not necessarily safety. So I think the idea there is the need for the turning lane is based on the number of cars waiting to turn. Like you want to try to eliminate a backup in terms of the cars turning. So again, this was a very quick response, and I'm happy to follow up with MVPC just to talk through that further, because I think we got some more detail about the concerns raised that I didn't include in this email. And then the other question we asked was the concept of the indicator light when the car is leaving, if there's some kind of signal. And Brennan Patrick's answer was they haven't seen any examples of this technology being used outside of parking garages. And I think we've all probably experienced that as a pedestrian when you're crossing a parking garage and you get a signal that a car is coming. So they said they'd be happy to try to look into that further. Sadie, am I missing anything in our back and forth with MVPC?
I'm looking at the email. I think you covered everything.
I think regarding, lighting, it was helpful to see where the overhead lights that exist now is. And I think that was a comment that both the police chief and DPW talked about in terms of enhancing safety, and that all of this package of improvements together, certainly there's a sense from the staff level, they will improve current conditions, the signage, the crosswalks, the sidewalks, the whole package in this part of, this collection of roads. I think it's all very much hoped we'll be seeing a lot of improvements to current conditions and the new users and new homeowners. So happy to follow up on any of that with MVPC.
Thank you. With that all said, we will get you on the agenda for August 18th, and you guys can work with Kristen to button up the last few things that need to be done here.
Woody,
Yes, go right ahead, Larry.
the 18th is a Tuesday. I think maybe you meant the 19th.
No, well, thank you. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I have the 18th here. So if it is the 19th, then the 19th. We'll get you
Well,
on
we
the
don't,
agenda.
it's not a public hearing, so we don't need a motion anyway. We'll just get them on the next meeting.
Yep, we'll have them on the next meeting. I have the 18th here, but it will be the 19th. So it'll be a Wednesday. And thank you all for your comments and your presentations and the discussion. Thank you, Jay.
Woody, I'm sorry,
you.
can I just ask one question? While we have Jay and the board together, would the board like staff with council to come with some language related to approving these modifications to the next meeting?
Yes, I don't know who you're asking, Kristen, but yes.
I'm asking the planning board. Would you like staff to bring the modification approval for your consideration at the next meeting as written up?
I would support that. Yeah.
A draft, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. In addition to the site plan improvements that we've talked about, I wanted to clarify if we should be drafting a decision, a modification.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Christian. And we'll see you on the 19th.
Thank you, folks.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank And that leaves us with one item left on the agenda, the planners report.
Great. Thank you, everybody. All right. Couple of project updates. 108 Main Street subdivision has submitted an updated construction plan. If you've driven by in the last few weeks, you've probably noticed there hasn't been a lot going on. But I received that updated construction plan today, and I will distribute that. Essentially, works starting up again a week from today on Mr. Colantoni's schedule, and it is still scheduled to be complete the roadway before the snow falls and the ground freezes. So by I think some point in November. So I will share that. I did follow up with Mr. Colantoni about the hammering of the ledge, because I know that is a concern of the abutters and all of us related to when exactly that's happening, and giving some warning of that to the neighborhood. So I will keep you posted.
Kristen, along that, in our approval, and it was a long time ago, did we have any time limit on how long hammering could happen there, as we did with the applicant we just had before us?
I will have to look back at that because it was before my time. I don't think we talked about it last winter when we were giving him this extension, so I will check on that.
Okay.
Regarding the next meeting, I anticipate a couple things coming in. Sunset Club has told me their engineer will be submitting their closeout letter and a request to close out an engineer certification related to the as-built plan. So I'm expecting that by the deadline for the next meeting. Also, there's been some work being done at Florence Bushy Lane, which you all remember is off of Newman Road. It's just a 2-lot subdivision that the road is being reconstructed. They, speaking of granite curbing, are adding some granite curbing, and that was not on the original modified plan that the board approved last year. So we have asked them. We had Joe Sirwaka go look at it, and we've had DPW go look at it. It doesn't appear as though there will be any concerns related to plowing and turning radius and storm water, but they will be submitting a modification request to the board to make sure that that is approved and reviewed. So I think that will also be coming in. There's also been an enforcement issue on a project previously approved by the board that is being addressed by Conscom as well as the building commissioner. It's related to work that's happened at Farmview Lane at 68 Green Street. So I will provide more information to you all when those enforcement orders are written. That was a subdivision approval a few years ago for a 3-house lot. I want to mention that we had a candidate for the associate member planning board position who expressed interest and submitted a letter of interest to the select board. When that letter came in, the assistant administrator and town administrator and I discussed the process for the select board appointing that 1-year associate member position. Unfortunately, when the research was being done about the 1-year appointment language, it was found that there was actually mistakenly some text removed during the recodification phase 1 that happened at town meeting in 2025. You all remember because there was a thorough public hearing process, but there were a lot of edits and changes happening in both recodifications. One of the changes related to moving special permit information into Article 5, and some of the special permit language was in Article 11, which is the administration article of the zoning bylaw. So we struck out language related to the authorization that the town has to implement and appoint a 1-year associate member position. And very mistakenly, it wasn't caught by any of us. It was not put back in the new section. So the current approved zoning bylaw does not actually have the 2 sentences that we need to have in order to appoint an associate member, for the select board to appoint an associate member position. So we reviewed this with town council, who was intimately involved in the recodification process as well. And we all were disappointed to see that mistake happened, but it was a mistake, and we will need to bring that back to a zoning amendment proposal for next town meeting. I figure I'll pause there in case there are any questions related to that.
Kristen, I've got a question not related to that. For the Sunset Club, is it possible to do a site walk again? I know I'd be interested in doing it. Perhaps other board members would be as well. Or I can go to Plan B and buy a hamburger and go there.
I think it's completely customary and normal for the planning board to decide to do a site visit when you are considering the closeout of a project. So I would think that would be appropriate.
Oh, maybe you can give Vince a heads up, or Vincent a heads up, if the board feels that way.
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you, Steve.
I have one last thing, sorry, just if there are no more questions.
Okay.
I just want to mention, Sadie and I are working on our annual report for fiscal year 26. It's not sort of due to the town administrator and to be provided to the town until the fall, but I've been sort of trying to catch up on where we ended up with things. And I just wanted to very quickly share this little spreadsheet because I think it's kind of cool. I guess I'm proud of what this department with all of your support has done this year. Can you see that? Is it big enough? Let's see if I can. Okay. So I've just been putting in a list all of the funded projects that the planning department is working on. And you can see here, a lot of them are related to open space, trails, resiliency. There are a number of projects that are transportation improvement related. Things that have been in the town's master plan for years are finally moving forward. And again, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this right now. The number that is down here is kind of a crazy number, and I will explain that, which is some of these projects now have funding that are programmed into federal transportation improvement plans. These are 5-year plans, so these numbers are not at all money we have in hand right now, but they are money that has been dedicated to projects, planning, community planning, town planning projects that are moving forward and will be coming. Some of these projects, this little category here, these are regional projects that staff have been involved in over the past year. Grants that didn't actually come to the town of Newbury. For instance, the Plum Island Turnpike feasibility study was a flap grant to Newburyport. These CZM projects, one went to Ipswich, one went to Salisbury, but they're regional projects that we've been a part of. And a couple of these are things we've just heard about are coming in. Pie Rivers Partnership, which is the Parker Ipswich Essex watersheds, working together on restoration and resiliency projects, things like the Larkin Dam removal. It's a partnership that just was awarded a big partnership support grant from the Division of Ecological Restoration. And I've been working on that steering committee for years and I'm currently chair of it. And I made sure that the Parker watershed had some particular tasks and scope of work related to this partnership grant. So again, these are long-term projects with, some on-the-ground restoration work, outreach, education. We're looking at funding to do some recreational improvements at the Larkin Dam removal site, just a little trail, picnic table, some signage describing what happened there, just trying to get funding wherever we can to support the really awesome stuff that's going on in this town. So thought I was kind of it was kind of exciting to put this together, and I wanted to share it with you all. Some good stuff ahead, and some good stuff has been happening, and we really appreciate all of the volunteers who are involved in this work.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Exciting
That's
news.
my report.
All right. I have nothing else on the agenda this evening. So with that said, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Larry. And a second, please.
Go ahead, Steve.
Nobody wants to go home?
Thank you, Pete. All right. And on that, Peter, Larry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and Steve,
Yes.
everyone have a good night. And thank
Thank
you,
you,
Kristen, and thank you,
Thank you,
Sadie.
Ray. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Good night,
in the,
everybody.